everyone, I'm Summer, and this is my channel, Red Lipstick Book Addict, where we like to talk about mysteries, thrillers, romances, and so much more. All opinions are welcome, of course, because here we like to talk about not only why we love to love books, but also why we love to hate them. And today, we're going to be talking about Colleen Hoover's November 9. Now, this book is interesting to me because it sparked up a little bit of controversy where some people really love the book and some people really hate it. And there seems to not really be much of an in-between. And I love a book where there's different opinions, kind of stirs up different thoughts with different people, because honestly, like, if everybody thought and felt the same way, life would be boring. So, and the funny thing is the thing that got me to read this book is because people were hating on it so hard. And I was like, I have got to read this book. So, but sometimes bad publicity is still publicity, honestly. Anyway, so November 9 by Colleen Hoover. First of all, let's talk about what is the book about. It's about a girl named Fallon who gets burned really bad in a house fire, totally destroys her acting career. And she meets a guy named Ben who talks kind of funny and has a love for poetry and wants to be a writer. And the two of them meet at a time where they're both kind of in a dark place, and they help each other to get out of that dark place. The interesting thing about their story is that they vow to meet only once a year on November 9th, which is a significant anniversary for both of them for reasons that have nothing to do with each other, but then eventually it becomes about each other as well. And the whole thing is like they're trying to find a reason to look forward to this date because it's not really a date in their lives that they necessarily love. It's something traumatic happened that day for both of them. The genre for this, I think, can be a little bit confusing because I think that it's probably marketed as a romance. However, one thing that I found kind of interesting is that there are elements in this that make it seem like a thriller. And then I started thinking about, does Colleen Hoover know what she's doing when she writes books like this, where it's like there's suspense and some of the plot twists are scary? Like, it's just confusing. Like, is this a romance? Is this a thriller? What is it? I think that she's just kind of written a new genre that maybe we're not as familiar with. And I'm gonna call this genre gothic romance, because she tends to write about characters that have a somewhat taboo relationship or a unique romance that has some shocking elements to it, maybe even a little bit of horror. And if you've read other books by Colleen Hoover, I think you might know what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and release a warning to those that haven't read the book November 9, because there are going to be like a ton of spoilers. And I'm also going to be referencing the books very briefly: Verity and Ugly Love and Too Late. Those are all by Colleen Hoover as well. And all of those books have something in common with this book, which is that they have a taboo relationship. They have a romance element. They also have a thriller element. It's like there's drama, there's suspense, and then yeah, so, okay, one thing that I thought was fun is that this book actually had a little brief crossover with the book Ugly Love. It talks about the characters Miles and Tate, which are in Ugly Love, and that was fun for me because I did read Ugly Love first, so I enjoyed that. Ugly Love has a taboo relationship in it because Miles meets Tate, and Miles is best friends with Tate's brother, so he feels like Tate is off limits. And of course, that's just what makes them fall for each other even more, because, you know, it's more fun to do things you're not supposed to do. And Miles, in the book Ugly Love, spoiler alert, Miles like has like some kind of romance with his stepsister, and it talks about it, and it's super weird and super icky. One of the things that people like to talk about with the book Ugly Love. But I think that is Colleen Hoover's style. She likes throwing in a little bit of like, ooh, like what? And it kind of makes it more interesting. I mean, if you can handle it. But thankfully there was no, oh yeah, that reminds me. So I was gonna say there's no incest in this book, but there almost was when you think about it, because Ben, it's revealed later in this book that Ben's mother had a romantic relationship with Fallon's father at one point. So if they would have gotten married, Fallon and Ben would be step siblings. And I'm like, that's just like an ugly love, where Miles was in love with his stepsister. Why does Colleen Hoover love incest so much? And I think she just likes the whole gothic romance, like it's like taboo stuff. So yeah. And Verity is another example of a taboo relationship, because it's about these two people that meet and they're not supposed to be in love because one of them is married. And on top of that, she's sick. So that's one reason why Verity is taboo relationship. And then Too Late, that one is like a relationship where they're like not supposed to be together or something. So, and then like the guy, the love interest, ends up having a secret. It's another thing that's a common theme in Colleen Hoover's books. She likes there to be secrets between the two love interests. And then it's like plot twist. Seems to be a little bit of a formula for her books, that there's always like some dark secret that one of the characters is harboring, which I do enjoy. But yeah, one of the things that was confusing about this book is it's not your typical love story. It even makes you kind of hate Ben, because, drumroll, the biggest spoiler in the book, Ben is the reason that Fallon has these terrible burns on her body. And personally, I didn't see that one coming. I didn't know that he was going to be the one responsible for the house fire. It was an accident, kind of, but it's like, Fallon deserved better. And I was kind of disappointed that the only guy that ends up saying that she's beautiful with the burns is Ben, and it was just felt kind of unfair. Like, doesn't she deserve better than the guy who literally is the one that burned her? And so, I don't know. But yeah, so Ben, I hate him for that. I hate him for being responsible for the burns. And also, like, he literally was like, he knew that it was him. I get that he was scared, but then like it ruined not just Fallon's career, but also her relationship with her dad that was already on the rocks, which is why Ben tries to push them to like stay closer, because he feels responsible for their falling out, which is like, well, he should, you know. So overall I give it a 3 stars, which I was really torn about, because there were so many things that I loved and hated about this. You know, I was going back and forth, like, this is not a good romance, this is a unique romance. And also with Colleen Hoover's writing style, I find that 90% of the book is dialogue between the characters. So it's like, and then I think that she felt it seemed very undecided on the genre of this book. It's marketed as a romance. Really, it should be marketed as like, it's a romance / thriller, in my opinion. And I think if we would have had more elements of the thriller aspect, that would have been intriguing. If we would have been able to like marry the two genres a little bit more. And it would have been really easy to make Ben even more of a villain, because he was already halfway there, honestly. But then it wouldn't really, I guess, be a true love story if it ended up that he was just a bad guy with no redeeming qualities. So he was a complex character, and we love a complex character. I mean, multi-dimensional, multi-layered, love that. Fallon I really liked, because she was really sassy and she was determined and she never gave up. I liked Fallon a lot. I didn't find, it was like this book pulled on my heartstrings a little bit, because it was like I wanted both the characters to be happy, but I don't know that I would be as forgiving as Fallon was in this book, personally. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get into my notes here, because I was on a 6-hour road trip being passenger princess, and I had plenty of time to write notes about what I wanted to do in this review, and I still procrastinated on it. But first of all, let's talk about some quotes in the book that I just kind of thought were funny because they were totally unromantic. It's between Ben and Fallon, and they're supposed to be like, you know, the main love interest in the book. So there's one, and this one's my favorite, where Fallon says, "Do you always look like you're about to puke when you feel like kissing a girl?" And then Ben says, "Not until you." And then I like the one where Ben is like, "I barely know you, so I'm not about to argue with you over your level of intelligence because you very well could be as dumb as a rock, but at least you're pretty." And then whenever Fallon says, "What am I going to do with you, Ben the writer?" And he says, "You could kiss me to make me feel better." And then she says, "No way." I just like how, like, so unromantic those are. Now, gotta give credit where credit is due. Ben does have a really good line in this, and I just can't ignore it. His most romantic line in the book is when he says, "I didn't think you needed rescuing. I just sometimes find it difficult to control my indignation in the presence of absurdity." I liked that one a lot. He definitely talks like a writer in the book, which is funny because, you know, like in some books, whenever they make the characters sound like unrealistically witty, Ben has that quality, but it's in a silly, goofy way. And like, we know he is a writer, so it makes it tolerable how ridiculous that he talks. Although I did think it was funny when one of the characters said hogwash, because it's like, who says that in real life? So overall, let's just go ahead and get the quick ratings out of the way. So I give this 3 stars overall. For writing style, I'm going to give it 3 to 4 stars. I'm conflicted on that because I think there are certain things that aren't necessarily my preference, but they're her style and it's in the formula in the book she writes. So, but the biggest thing that really bothered me in this was there was not enough descriptiveness, which is why I'm going to give the setting a 0, because like there was just so many opportunities to talk about the way things look, the way, you know, like the way the characters felt. How did the characters look? Like there was just so much missing and too much emphasis put on the conversations with the characters and not enough talk about what was going on beyond their conversations. I think that we got to expand a lot on Fallon and Ben, but we didn't get to expand much on the other characters, so I'm going to give the character development a 3. However, I did like the character development on Ben. I thought he was a complex character, which was really nice and refreshing. Fallon, I think it would have been really cool if we would have seen what was her life like before the fire, because then we could have gotten to see the dichotomy between like what life was like before versus after, and like the gravity of that event and how it like affected her life. Also, Ben's mom and Fallon's dad, their relationship, maybe that we could have gotten a little bit more out of that, a little bit more drama or something. And then like there was Fallon's roommate. I liked her roommate. I wouldn't have minded seeing more from her. And definitely Ben's brothers, because they seemed very interesting. Especially I think it was Kyle. He was interesting. I would have liked to see more from him. And one thing I want to get into, about to drop the book. One thing I want to get into is I noticed there's a weird part where Ben talks about the blood stain left by his mother after she, you know, and it was pretty weird. He compares his mother's blood stain to a guy named Gary Busey. I think that's how you say it. And it's like, that wasn't necessary. I think that sometimes Colleen Hoover has the tendency to overestimate how desensitized and removed people can be in the face of trauma. Or she's just like going too far, and like maybe it's just something that it's just weird to read about. Like maybe she's not wrong that people do that. Maybe not everybody though, because yeah, that was just weird the way that Ben talked about his mom's bloodstain. That gave me the ick, and it made me feel like, is this character a sociopath? So yeah, my biggest thing with the book was just that I just feel like it wasn't decided on enough as a genre. And if you really love romances, especially like a classic typical romance that like the characters deserve each other, they're good for each other, I don't recommend this. But if you like unique romances that are a little bit taboo, that make people raise their eyebrows, and a romance with some elements of a thriller or horror, then I do recommend this for you. But it just depends on if you can handle a romance that is just so not ship worthy and just like it's interesting to read, but it's just not it's not like, oh yeah, they should be together in real life, you know what I mean? So that is my full book review. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you watched the whole thing. And go ahead and let me know what you thought about the book. I'm really curious. I know a lot of people have different opinions about this. Tell me what you loved or hated about it, if you had mixed feelings about it. And like, comment, or subscribe. Thank you. Bye.